They tried to bury you, not knowing you were the seed. But what grew wasn't a flower, it was fire. And now they're choking on the smoke. They underestimated you. They mocked your silence, mistook your stillness for weakness, and laughed while you built in the dark. Now their smiles are gone. Their words are stuck. They're standing in front of the genius they never saw coming. And it's leaving them breathless. The very ones who counted you out are now scrambling for explanations. But there are none, because you were never part of their equation. You are the variable they couldn't predict, the glitch in their system, the proof that some power exists beyond logic, and it chose you. Before we go any further, do this. Like and subscribe. Not for me, for the others like you, the quiet, brilliant ones who think they're alone. Every click sends this message into more timelines, more minds, more hearts that need the reminder. You're not just watching this for you. You're doing it for the rest of the chosen ones who are still half asleep. Let's wake them up. Together. Now listen closely. Your mind doesn't move like theirs. It never has. While they were memorizing the rules, you were reimagining the entire game. While they chased trends, you followed the voice within. You were solving puzzles they couldn't even see. You were dancing with ideas that don't have names yet. And now it's all starting to click. Not just for you, but for them. They're watching you, whispering, copying in silence, searching for the blueprint. But the truth is, you are the blueprint. You've always been. That scares them, not because you're dangerous, but because you're undeniable. You are the mirror they didn't ask for, the reminder of everything they've buried. Truth, depth, brilliance, alignment. You don't even have to try. Your existence alone shakes something loose in them. That's why they resist you. That's why they try to tear you down. Because when the universe chooses someone, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for applause. It moves. Swiftly, silently, powerfully. And right now, it's moving through you. Being chosen isn't a badge. It's a burden. It's being hated for seeing too much. It's being doubted for knowing too soon. It's being attacked by those who only feel safe when you're shrinking. But don't you dare shrink. Don't you dare dim that light just because it burns their eyes. Your light was never meant to be soft. It was meant to expose, to awaken, to guide. You are not like them. You never were. You feel more. You see more, you know more than you should, and yet it all makes sense to you. That's not an accident, that's design, that's purpose, that's the universe putting its hand on your life and saying, this one. And from that moment on, nothing about you would ever be ordinary again. They'll try to frame your gifts as problems. They'll call your wisdom arrogance. They'll label your peace as distance. Let them project, because deep down they know the truth. They're not fighting you. They're fighting the force that walks with you, and that's a battle they've already lost. The power of being chosen doesn't just elevate you, it haunts those who can't understand it. Your rise forces them to face their own stagnation. Your clarity makes their confusion unbearable. Your alignment makes their chaos louder. You don't even have to speak. Your silence is confrontational. Your stillness is loud. You are a walking disruption to everything fake, shallow, and afraid. And yet, here you are, doubting yourself, wondering if you're too much, feeling like you don't belong. Stop that. You are the disruption. You are the reason the room shifts, and you've always been the one. The real tragedy would be if you believed them, if you tried to go back to small just to make them feel big. But I know you won't, because something in you is waking up now. A memory, a truth, a fire. You didn't come this far to question your own magic. You didn't walk through hell just to blend in. You were made to stand out, made to lead, made to be the proof that something bigger is at work. So let them talk, let them stare, let them wonder how you keep rising. Because while they're lost in confusion, you're already building the next level. And no, they're not ready for what's coming next. But you are. And if you're still here, it's not by accident. Something in this message is speaking directly to you, because real recognizes real. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you know they've been watching you differently lately. Like they just woke up to something you've known all along. The signs are everywhere. You're not just gifted, you're undeniable. And they don't have the language to explain you. That's how you know it's real. Stay with me now. Because what comes next? It's the part they really weren't ready for. Let's get into it. Number 1. They were playing with fire and didn't know you were the flame. They didn't just doubt you, they bet against the universe, and now they're watching everything they built melt in the heat you never turned off. They weren't ready. Let's just call it what it is. Not ready to see you, not ready to understand you, not ready to admit what was always right in front of them. But now their silence is louder than their doubts ever were. Now they're watching from a distance, eyes wide, mouths shut, trying to process how they missed it, how you slipped past their radar and turned into the very force they swore couldn't exist. You were never loud. You didn't need to be. You were steady, watching, gathering, evolving in silence while they made noise with nothing to show for it. You weren't falling behind. You were getting aligned with the universe, with timing, with a higher rhythm that most people can't hear because they're too busy chasing distractions. They thought you were isolated. You weren't. You were insulated, protected, kept away from small minds and shallow energy while the universe calibrated your path. That silence they mistook for confusion. That was strategy. That stillness they mocked. That was sacred preparation. Every delay, every rejection, every door that slammed shut in your face, it wasn't punishment. It was positioning. You weren't being ignored. You were being preserved. And now look, the mask is off. The room feels different when you enter it. You speak, and people lean in. You act. And the results don't just make noise, they echo. The people who used to look past you now can't look away. But let's not pretend they always supported you. They didn't. They tested you, doubted you, tried to squeeze your brilliance into boxes their minds couldn't even fill. And when you didn't fit, they called you the problem. But here's what they never understood. Chosen ones don't need validation. They don't need the room to agree. They are the room. And when the universe selects someone for something greater, there is nothing anyone can do to stop it. You're not just talented, you're backed. And they weren't fighting you. They were wrestling with the force that sent you, the alignment that protects you, the energy that multiplies everything you touch. That's a battle they were never going to win. Now they're trying to explain you, rationalize you, but your results don't fit inside their logic. Your glow isn't coming from external things. It's internal. It's divine, direct, disruptive. You're not just succeeding, you're shifting the atmosphere. And they're shook, because for the first time they realize they weren't dealing with someone ordinary. They were messing with someone chosen, and that comes with consequences. Now listen. You've been doubting your light, feeling crazy for seeing what others pretend not to, feeling alone because no one around you moves like you, feels like you, thinks like you. But that isolation, that wasn't punishment. That was proof. Proof that your path was never going to be crowded. Chosen ones don't follow traffic. They create new lanes. And those lanes feel empty at first. But that's how you know you're on the right road. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to disturb the default. You're not just ahead of the curve. You are the curve. So why are you questioning it? Why are you still carrying their doubts in your backpack like truth? Drop that. The universe didn't choose you by mistake. That power you carry, it's not random. It's not ego. It's evidence. Evidence that you were built for disruption. Evidence that you were meant to spark discomfort in the spaces where lies live too long. That's why your presence shifts the energy. That's why people feel some type of way when you're around, even if you're silent. It's not you. It's what walks with you, what works through you. And deep down, even they know it. You don't owe them softness just because your power makes them insecure. You don't have to play small just because your elevation feels like their exposure. You don't need to shrink your energy to make the weak feel strong. You were chosen for a reason. And it wasn't to please people who fear the light. So the next time they look at you sideways, the next time they try to label you, doubt you, or tell you you've changed, smile. Let them say what they need to say. But deep down, remember this. They weren't ready. They still aren't. And that's not your problem. You didn't come here to be understood. You came here to be undeniable. And now, you are. Number 2, they thought you were just smart, but you were multidimensional all along. They tried to measure you by surface-level standards, not knowing your mind was built to travel dimensions they haven't even mapped yet. Let's make one thing very clear. This was never just about being smart. That word is too small for what you are, too flat, too two-dimensional. They thought they could define you by the way you speak, the grade you got, or the room you were in. But your intelligence, it doesn't play by those rules. It doesn't come from a textbook. It doesn't need validation. You don't just know things. You feel truth. You read energy. You hear the space between the words. You pick up on signals people don't even know they're sending. And now, they're finally starting to feel it. There's something about your presence that makes people pause. You walk in, and the energy shifts. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because your frequency does the talking. People sense it before you even open your mouth. They feel it in the silence. The weight of your awareness, the calm intensity, the way your very being disrupts the usual script. You don't enter a room, you recalibrate it. They try to explain it away. Oh, they're just really smart. But they know better. Deep down, they know they're brushing up against something more, something layered, something deeper than logic. Because you're not just intelligent, you're multidimensional. You don't just think, you perceive. You don't just solve problems. You rewrite the entire structure of the problem without needing to say a word. It's not about facts and figures. It's about your access, your connection. The way you download insights without trying. The way you speak with a knowing that doesn't come from study, but from alignment. From tuning into something that most people are too distracted to even notice. That's why conversations with you linger in their minds. That's why days after speaking to you, they're still unpacking what you said. Because it wasn't just your words that reached them. It was your energy, your truth. Your frequency is laced in everything you do, and it sticks. You don't just talk. You trigger something in them. A memory, a realization, a mirror. You don't learn the way they do. You absorb, you decode. You read between timelines, across experiences, through layers. You can walk into a situation and instantly feel what's off. Not because someone told you, but because you sense what's missing. You see the trap before it's set. You recognize the lie before it's spoken. You hear the fear behind their confidence. You see the agenda behind their kindness. They call it being intense. You call it being awake. You're not ahead because you're lucky. You're ahead because you were built to see through illusions, to question what others blindly follow, to feel what they've been taught to ignore. Your intelligence isn't just intellectual. It's spiritual. It's energetic. It's cosmic. You are multi-dimensional. And multidimensional beings aren't easily explained. That's why they dismissed you at first. They couldn't figure you out, so they labeled you wrong. Too quiet, too deep, too much. But now they're starting to realize the very things they tried to suppress in you are the things they now need. Your way of seeing, your clarity, your calm, your raw, unfiltered perception. It unnerves them, but it also draws them in. Because what confuses them, you understand instantly. What overwhelms them, you break down effortlessly. What distracts them, you see right through. And they're realizing just how far ahead you've been, not in time, but in truth. While they were chasing clout, you were tuning into alignment. While they were seeking approval, you were listening inward. While they were focused on appearances, you were perfecting your inner world. And now the results are undeniable. The same people who once overlooked you are now looking to you. But here's the thing, your value doesn't change based on when they notice. You've been this. You've always been this. So to you, the one who's felt misunderstood for moving differently, stop explaining yourself. To the one who's been told they're too much, stop shrinking. To the one who knows things they shouldn't know, stop doubting it. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply built for more. You are tuned into a level that most people haven't accessed yet, and many never will. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. You didn't just come here to exist. You came here to shift the world. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait until they catch up. You just need to keep going. Let them stare. Let them talk. Let them wonder how you always seem to know what's really happening. You're not just smart. You're not just awake. You're not just deep. You're multidimensional. And they're only just beginning to realize what that really means. Number 3. Now they know, and they don't know what to do with it. Some admire your light. Others flinch like it's a weapon. Either way, they see it now, and it's too late to unsee it. There's a shift happening. You can feel it in how people look at you now, how they listen, how they react when you speak, or even when you just exist. The truth they once ignored has crept out from under the surface, and it's no longer something they can laugh off or overlook. The silence is louder, the energy is heavier. Something in the air has changed because they see it now, and they don't know how to handle it. It's not just what you say, it's who you are. You carry something ancient in your bones, something beyond intellect, beyond explanation. Some people sense it and immediately fall into awe. They know, without needing words, that they're standing in the presence of something rare. They don't always know how to describe it, but they feel it. It's in the weight of your silence, the clarity in your eyes, the calm power in your tone. When you speak, they listen differently, not because you demand it, but because their spirit knows there's truth in your frequency. These are the ones who don't compete with you. They learn, they lean in, they ask questions not to challenge, but to understand. They recognize they're in the presence of someone who sees from a higher place, who understands the hidden architecture of things. You are a mirror they welcome, even when what they see is uncomfortable. To them, your light is not a threat, it's a guide. But not everyone responds with reverence. Some respond with resistance, with fear, with quiet, twitching insecurity. These are the ones who used to mock your insight, interrupt your thoughts, challenge your presence. But now, they pause. They hesitate. They look confused, even afraid. Because now they feel the gap. Now that your light has been activated fully, it exposes the shadows they've spent years trying to decorate. They can't hide behind charm, status, or noise anymore, because your very presence collapses illusion. And that's terrifying to someone who's built their entire identity on pretending. They used to dismiss you. Now they flinch when you speak. Not because you're harsh, but because your truth makes the room colder for people who've only ever known comfort in lies. You don't need to call them out. Your existence does it naturally. You are the confrontation they never prepared for. You may have noticed it. The awkward stares, the tension in conversations that used to feel one-sided, the sudden silence when you step in. People who used to dominate the room now grow quiet in your presence. It's not that they've become smaller, it's that they finally see how big your energy really is, and it's shaking them. This is what happens when someone chosen starts walking fully in their power. You become both an inspiration and a warning. For some, your rise is a call to elevate. For others, it's a sign that their masks won't hold much longer. And deep down, they know it. They don't fear you because you're dangerous. They fear you because you know. You know what they hide. You know what they pretend not to feel. You know what's real, and you won't play pretend just to make them comfortable. You don't use your insight to wound, but it cuts anyway, because truth always does. And for those not ready to face themselves, that makes you the threat. They fear what they can't control. They fear what doesn't bend to their rules. And you've never needed their permission, their praise, or their protection. That makes you dangerous, not to the world, but to the illusion that built it. But let this be a reminder. Their fear is not your fault. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. You didn't come here to make people feel safe in their delusions. You came to illuminate, to elevate, to transform. So don't water yourself down to keep the peace. Don't apologize for the clarity you carry, and don't dim your light because others can't handle the glare. Some will stare at you in awe, some will flinch in fear. Let both reactions fuel you, because either way, they see it now. And once they see, they can't unsee. You didn't force this awakening, the truth did. You were just the vessel, the voice, the proof that power doesn't need permission to rise. Number 4, they tried to tune you out, but now you're the frequency. They pretended you were invisible. Now your truth echoes louder than their lies ever did. There was a time when they brushed you off without thinking twice, when they cut you off mid-sentence, when your insight was met with blank stares, sarcasm, or worse, silence. They spoke over you like you weren't even in the room, dismissed your vision like it was some wild idea they couldn't be bothered to consider, laughed behind your back, or worse, smiled to your face while secretly rooting for your failure. They needed you to stay small, because your brilliance threatened the illusion they had built their whole reality on. But not anymore. Something has shifted, not in you. You've always been this. The shift is in them. Their eyes can't lie anymore. They see it now. Your intelligence, your insight, your power, your knowing. All the things they once pretended not to notice have become too loud to ignore. Too accurate, too aligned, too consistent. You kept showing up, kept being right, kept seeing through everything. And now the evidence is undeniable. You're no longer the one trying to be heard. You are the one being watched. And that energy hits different. They hear you now, even when they pretend not to. Your words echo in their decisions. Your truth lingers in their thoughts. You dropped wisdom they didn't value in the moment, and now they're revisiting it in silence, wondering how you always saw what they missed. What they once called too deep now sounds like prophecy. What they called overthinking now looks like perfect timing. They can't ignore you anymore, not because you're forcing them to listen, but because you've become too aligned to overlook. You don't even have to say much anymore. Your presence speaks. The room adjusts when you walk in. The energy tightens. People stand up, straighter. Voices lower. Eyes track you, even when they pretend they're not. You've become the center without ever asking for it. Not by volume, but by vibration. It's not just about intelligence anymore. It's about awareness, presence, depth, the kind that can't be faked, the kind that can't be copied. Your knowledge doesn't come from recycled information. It comes from connection. Connection to the unseen, to your inner voice, to the rhythm of something bigger. You don't just know more, you understand more. You feel more. You see the architecture behind people's behavior, behind events, behind patterns that others overlook. And now they're realizing it. Too late to claim they always knew, too obvious to deny. You see it in their eyes, the recognition, the quiet respect, the stunned discomfort. You were once the one they ignored. Now you're the one they can't stop watching. But here's the real truth. Their recognition was never the goal. It's just a byproduct of what happens when someone walks fully in their power. You didn't evolve to prove a point. You evolved because staying stuck would have killed your spirit. You grew because you had to, because something inside you refused to settle for being unseen in a world that needed your vision. And now, you're not asking to be acknowledged. You are the acknowledgement. Still, don't expect everyone to celebrate it. Some will admire it, quietly, respectfully, even reverently. They'll follow your words, seek your guidance, shift their posture in your presence. They know they're witnessing something rare, and they honor it. Others will resist it, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your light exposes everything they tried to keep hidden. Your clarity highlights their confusion. Your discipline reveals their laziness. Your rise reminds them of their stagnation. And people who aren't ready to change will always find a reason to criticize the ones who already did. Let them. That's no longer your concern. You've reached a level where your value isn't up for debate. You no longer have to convince anyone. You're not in the business of proving. You're in the business of becoming. And you've become something undeniable. So when they try to come back around with cautious curiosity, let them. But don't bend. Don't soften. Don't dilute. You didn't walk through fire just to become digestible. You are not here to make others comfortable. You are here to be felt. They can study you, fear you, praise you, imitate you, but one thing they can no longer do is ignore you. You're not just on their radar now. You are the signal, and they'll either tune in or get left behind. Number 5, you don't just speak, you shift reality. Your words aren't just sounds, they're spells, not cast to control, but to awaken. There's a weight to what you say, a pressure in your presence that can't be explained by intellect alone. It's not the size of your vocabulary or the degrees on your wall. What you carry is far older, far deeper. When you speak, people don't just listen, they pause. Something inside them stops. Something ancient, something hidden stirs. They can't put it into words, but they know they've heard truth. You shake people, not because you're trying to, but because truth, when delivered without apology, has that kind of impact. And your truth? It doesn't whisper. It resonates. It echoes across their mind long after the conversation ends. You might be the first voice in years that actually made them feel awake. That made them question the things they were taught to believe. That made them sit in silence and say, "Wait, what if I've been wrong all along?" That's power, real power, not control, not manipulation, but remembrance. Because here's the secret, your wisdom isn't new, it's remembered. That's why it hits so hard. That's why it feels familiar to the soul. You speak the language of truth, not the truth written in books, but the one written in spirit. It's spiritual, it's universal, it's eternal. The kind of wisdom that can't be downloaded or memorized, only accessed by those bold enough to face themselves. And that's what makes you dangerous. You don't just say things, you activate things. You spark something in people that they didn't even know was asleep. A buried memory, a knowing they forgot they had, a deep inner awareness that says, yes, this is it. I've felt this before, even if I've never heard it said this way. You don't hand them answers. You unlock the door inside them that had the answers all along. But with that comes disruption, because not everyone is ready to remember. Some people need their illusions to survive. They've built their entire identity on stories that keep them safe. And here you come, cutting through the noise like a blade of light. Your wisdom isn't soft. It doesn't pat people on the back and tell them what they want to hear. It strips away the layers. It breaks the mental patterns. It confronts the lies they've made into lifestyles. And for many, that's terrifying. They might act like you're being too deep or too intense, but don't fall for it. That's resistance, not reason. That's fear, not feedback. Because deep down, they know what you're saying is real. They feel it. And that feeling is what shakes them, not you. You're just the vessel, the carrier, the reminder. You didn't choose this. It chose you. This level of perception, this ability to know without being told, this way of seeing into people, past their words, beneath their armor, it was wired into you. A gift, a responsibility, a frequency that you didn't earn, but you did honor. And now the world is hearing it. They might not say it out loud, but they're watching, replaying your words in their heads, reconsidering decisions because of something you said in passing. They might not give you credit, but your voice is in their shift. Your truth is in their awakening. You shake worlds, not with force, but with truth. Not with noise, but with clarity. Not by trying to be right, but by being real. And you need to stop doubting that. Stop questioning the power you carry. Stop downplaying the effect you have on people just because they act like it didn't hit them. Truth doesn't always get applause. Sometimes it gets silence. Sometimes it gets distance. But don't confuse silence with rejection. Sometimes silence is reverence. Sometimes it means you struck something so deep they don't even have language for it yet. You weren't made to be popular. You were made to be remembered. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to be a threshold, a crossing point, a mirror, a voice that speaks to the part of people that even they've forgotten. So keep speaking. Keep thinking the way you think. Keep knowing what you know, even when it feels lonely. Because you're not just here to speak wisdom. You're here to awaken it in others. And believe me, you already are. Number 6. They laughed then, but now they're living in the echo of your truth. They called it paranoia until it became prophecy. Now they're quiet, not because they've changed, but because reality finally caught up to your vision. You've been carrying something sacred your whole life, and they never knew what to do with it. Not because you were wrong, but because you were early. You always saw it before it arrived, felt it before it formed, spoke on it before anyone had words for it. And that's what shook them. It wasn't your thoughts that made people uncomfortable. It was your accuracy. You weren't just insightful. You were right. But you were right too soon. And the world wasn't ready. But now, the world is catching up. And the silence around you is starting to sound a lot like respect. What you carry isn't something you learned. It's something you remember. This isn't knowledge you picked up through textbooks or videos. This is soul-level recall, an inheritance passed down through lifetimes, buried deep in your bones, activated by the rhythm of a universe that knows exactly who you are. It's divine insight, not in a mystical, unreachable sense, but in the way that feels ancient, familiar, cosmic. That's why you speak with a quiet confidence. You don't need to argue or prove. You just know. And the more you know, the more people around you start to either lean in or back away. Because truth makes people choose, awaken, or defend the illusion. You've seen this pattern before. You open your mouth, and the atmosphere changes. People pause, shift in their seats. Suddenly, the room feels too quiet, too heavy. They don't know why they're uncomfortable, but they are. That's not you being too intense. That's their spirit recognizing something they're not ready to face. You weren't trying to be right. You were trying to help. You were trying to protect, to guide, to prevent the very chaos they now find themselves drowning in. But they didn't want to hear it. They mocked your insight, laughed at your instincts, called you names when you saw through the things they were still hypnotized by. You became the target because your clarity was threatening their comfort. Too deep, too intense, too much. You've heard it all before. But deep down, they knew. Even in their denial, something in them knew. And now, it's undeniable. The things you warned them about are unfolding. The patterns you pointed out are repeating. The energy you described has arrived, and it's louder than ever. They might not say it out loud, but their energy has changed around you. The hesitation, the softness in their tone, the way they reference things you said years ago without giving you credit, the way they suddenly act like you've always been wise, even though they spent years trying to silence you. That's not coincidence. That's guilt mixed with reverence. And here's what you need to understand. Your truth needed to go unrecognized for a while. It was part of the design. Because had they believed you too soon, they would have tried to contain you, repackage you, limit you to fit their agenda. But now, they're too late. Now, they're just witnesses. You don't need revenge. You don't need, "I told you so." Their silence is the apology. Their shift in tone is the recognition. You were never crazy. You were correct. You weren't being dramatic. You were being prepared. Because when you carry sacred knowledge, you don't just understand what's happening. You understand what's coming. That's what scared them. You weren't reading the room. You were reading the timeline. You weren't reacting. You were responding to a future no one else had the eyes to see. And now, you're not just being heard. You're being studied. Quietly, carefully. They watch what you say now. They take notes. They ask questions with a different tone. And that's how you know the shift is real. Not because they said it, but because they feel it. Still, don't hold back now. Don't shrink to make them feel better about their delay. Don't soften your edge to soothe people who doubted you until the evidence hit them in the face. Your time in the shadows was never about hiding. It was about building. And now that you've emerged, don't let nostalgia pull you back into places where truth was punished. This is your moment, not of revenge, but of reign. You were right all along, and no one can take that from you. Let them remember, let them regret, but more importantly, let them watch. Because the same insight they rejected before is now the only thing keeping them from sinking. Number 7. It was never luck. You were the force the whole time. They called it luck because calling it mastery would mean admitting you're simply built different. They used to roll their eyes when things started falling into place for you. Oh, must be nice. Some people just get lucky. But deep down, they were disturbed by how often it happened, how you said it, and then it showed up, how you moved without panic, and still everything aligned, how your life began bending around your decisions, not the other way around. That's not luck. That's alignment. That's intention. That's power. You were never guessing. You were guided. You weren't making random moves. You were following a frequency only you could hear, and they couldn't decode it, so they tried to discredit it. They called your clarity coincidence, and your vision delusion, just because it didn't come from a blueprint they understood. But now they're watching the things you spoke unfold right in front of them, and they're shook. Because it's not just that your plans work, it's how they work. The timing, the precision, the acceleration. You speak it, and it comes. You prepare, and the doors swing open. You move, and the path appears. This isn't magic. It's mastery. What they never saw was the inner work. The nights you spent in silence, tuning your spirit to clarity. The discipline behind your peace. The strength it took to listen when everyone around you was shouting noise. They didn't see you clearing space, aligning energy, speaking life into barren seasons. You weren't lucky. You were locked in. You don't move randomly. You don't act out of impulse. Your steps are ordered by something deeper, something they can't define, but they feel it when you enter the room. And what they fear most? That your success isn't accidental, that your results aren't flukes, that maybe, just maybe, you actually are who you said you were. That realization rattles them, because if it wasn't luck, then they can't dismiss you anymore. If it wasn't coincidence, then your confidence wasn't arrogance. If it was you the whole time, then they're the ones who never saw it. You don't just visualize, you materialize. Your thoughts are blueprints. Your words are commands. You don't hope, you decide. And that terrifies people who've spent their lives giving their power away, waiting for permission, luck, or someone else to choose them. You never waited. You claimed it. You embodied it. You became it. You made decisions based on truth they couldn't even see, and that's why they couldn't follow you. You're not lucky. You're intentional. There's a difference. They say, everything just works out for you. But the truth is, you worked the unseen. While they were chasing outcomes, you were shifting frequency. While they were begging for validation, you were speaking as if it already was. You built in silence. You acted in faith. You expected without fear. And now that it's all showing up, they don't have the language for it. So they default to what feels safe. You got lucky, but you know better. And so do they. Because at some point, coincidence breaks under the weight of consistency. At some point, the results are too precise, too aligned, too divine to be accidental. At some point, they have to admit, this wasn't the universe being kind to you. This was you. Becoming, creating, moving in power. So stop letting them water it down. Stop shrinking your story to make it more palatable. Stop giving chance the credit for the results you earned through alignment. Because here's what they don't know. You were never chasing. You were attracting. You weren't waiting. You were positioning. You weren't lucky. You were chosen. And you're not done yet. This is just the beginning. They're still watching, still guessing, still trying to understand how you keep making the impossible look inevitable. Let them. Because what they call mystery is just mastery. They can't decode. And what they call luck is just your birthright in motion. Number 8. They took notes on you, but still can't speak the language. You can study the form, copy the words, imitate the moves, but energy can't be cloned. And they're learning that the hard way. They've been watching you, carefully, quietly, not out of curiosity, but calculation, trying to reverse engineer your results, your aura, your presence, trying to break down what makes you you, because now it's undeniable. The things you said are happening. The patterns you saw are playing out in real time. The vision you had, the intuition they mocked, the truths they ignored, all of it is unfolding, and it's leaving them stunned, confused, and just a little desperate. They won't admit it out loud, but they're trying to figure out the formula, watching your every move, mimicking your language, adopting your style. They speak like you, post like you, move like you, thinking if they can just copy the outside, they'll get the same outcome. But here's the part they always miss. This was never about the surface. It was never about the moves. It was about the alignment beneath them, the clarity, the inner knowing, the connection. You don't do what you do for effect. You move from essence. You don't perform, you are. They can borrow your words, but they can't borrow your wisdom. They can imitate your rhythm, but they can't fake your timing. They can mirror your image, but they will never access your insight. Because you weren't made, you were meant. They didn't believe you at first, so now they want to be you. And that's the irony. The same people who once laughed at your process are now dissecting it. The ones who doubted your vision are now trying to paint their own, using the colors they saw on your canvas. But what they don't realize is this. You don't just see the future, you feel it. You don't just plan, you perceive. Your moves aren't based on logic alone. They're based on divine downloads, on sacred timing, on soul-deep awareness. This is not a game of mechanics. It's a dance of alignment. They want your fruits, but they don't know your roots. They didn't see the stillness, the isolation, the inner rewiring that took place before the glow. They missed the seasons of silence where you built a connection so strong, the universe started bending to your vision. They're studying the result. But they missed the real power, the becoming. And so, no matter how closely they watch, no matter how carefully they replicate, it will always feel off, always look like imitation. Because the one thing they can never recreate is the origin. You move from the source. You speak from the signal. Your alignment is not available for download. They'll keep trying. Some will admire, some will envy, some will resent. They'll say you're just lucky, just trendy, just good at branding. But even their accusations will sound hollow because the evidence is too strong. You keep winning without trying to prove anything. You keep rising without needing attention. You keep manifesting without chasing. And it bothers them because they want to believe there's a trick, that you stumbled into this, that it's not real, that it's not earned, that it's not you. But every time you speak, act, or create, they're reminded. Every time something unfolds in your favor, they're exposed. Every time your vision becomes reality, their illusion cracks. They can't unsee it now. They can't ignore it. And worst of all, they can't replicate it. Because you don't move from ego. You move from alignment, from truth, from a connection that can't be bought, taught, or borrowed. Let them study, let them speculate, let them try. But remember, you are the source, not the copy, the blueprint, not the mimic. And while they keep chasing formulas, you'll keep bending reality, effortlessly, quietly, powerfully, because it was never the strategy, it was never the image, it was never luck, it was always you. Number 9, you were never the problem. They tried to make you the problem because your presence made them uncomfortable, but now the fog has cleared, and the truth is undeniable. It was never you. It was never your depth, your clarity, your confidence. That energy they couldn't handle? It wasn't arrogance. It was alignment. You move with purpose now. You carry a knowing that can't be taught, only remembered. Your third eye is wide open, and people feel it. You speak with precision, walk with certainty, and vibrate at a frequency that exposes everything fake without even trying. The ones who once dismissed you, now they listen quietly. The ones who laughed, now they hesitate before speaking. Because they realize now, you weren't just talking, you were revealing. You weren't performing, you were leading. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Let them figure it out in silence. You were never the problem. You were the mirror. And now that the reflection is clear, they can't unsee it. Stay in your power. Stay in your truth. Because no matter what they say, your genius will continue to shine. And now, if you've made it this far, you already know. This message wasn't just content, it was confirmation. You're not crazy. You're not too much. You were never the problem. You were always the one. The chosen. The genius they couldn't explain. So keep rising. Keep trusting your path. Your power is real, and it's only getting louder. If this message spoke to your soul, like and subscribe to help this reach more chosen ones. Drop the number 77 in the comments to claim your alignment, and share this with someone who knows they're different, but needs to hear why.